general session is completed. So let's address this in first. We have a motion by Vice President Glennon, so a second by Director Wood to come out of the closed session. Can I get a roll call vote for that? Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, to come out of closed session, there was a 5-0 vote. And prior to giving the results of that meeting, we're not completed with it. May I get a motion from a director to continue with the closed session after the general session meeting?
So moved.
And we have a motion by Vice President Glennon to continue closed session after this meeting, after the general session. May I get a second?
Second.
Second by Director Wood. Can I get a roll call vote? Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, the record showed that there was a 5-0 vote to come out of closed session. There was a 5-0 vote. The closed session to come out was at 6:06. And you had a follow-up vote at 6:06 to continue the closed session after the general session. Now, with that, there's no action to report on the closed session. And now, it's 6:07 p.m. We open the board to the regular general session meeting. This time I'll read the public comment. Any person may address the board on any subject within the district's jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. However, any non-agenda matter will be referred to staff or report and/or action at a subsequent board meeting. And no action can be taken on any such item discussed unless the action has been authorized under Section 549.2 of the Government Code. Any person may also address the board on any agenda matter at the time the matter is discussed prior to board consideration and action. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 5 minutes. It's now 6:08 p.m. and we open the floor for public comment.
Hearing none.
There you go. Hearing none. Do you have something as a private person here?
I will read this as a member of the public, not as a director. Just a reminder, these are notes taken from my father's comments made at a public meeting some 70 years ago. I feel they are worth repeating in public a second time. Self-improvement has 3 major requisites: the desire to improve, the wisdom to select proper action, and the time necessary to work towards improvement. The desire must come from within. The wisdom must be developed with a moral compass, and the time must be planned. No internal desire, no moral wisdom, no plan equals no self-improvement. Only natural decay and decline in all aspects of life: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Thank you.
So thank you, thank you, Director. Like I tell you each and every time.
Okay. Have a good night.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Hey, folks,
Sounds good. Alicia will be in tomorrow morning.
GM just presented something to me, so we're going to make a fight. Nothing's going to change in the agenda. We're just going to move parts around a little bit. And I'll address that momentarily. At this time, public violence. The information you had how many years ago is twice as well as it is today, and I sincerely appreciate
Thank you.
I hope people understand the dynamics of that. That was folks, that information you read was about 56 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just as applicable today as it was back then, so that's pretty powerful stuff. And his dad's a hell of a man. So anyway, that's my take on that one. Okay, voluntary public roll call. We have teleconference. Any member of the public on teleconference wish to identify themselves as present during this meeting, please do so for the records, and we open the floor up for that at 6:09 p.m. John, you're not here?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Amanda actually today. So I'm covering for John Joyce for the Rosamond Weekly News.
Hey, good evening, Amanda. How are you?
Doing great, covering for John.
Okay, absolutely. Tell John we all said hi. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You have a good evening.
Anyone else? Absolutely. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll continue. Now, let's do this here. we have the public comment and the request was to move presentations. We're going to adjust the menu. We're going to move those up to the next item there. And we will continue with the minutes, the consent calendar, new business after that. So what we're looking for, Steve?
Yep.
Okay, so with that said, we have the presentations. We'll start off with number one is employee appreciation, and the general manager has the floor for that. Go ahead, Steve.
John, you want to come up?
Oh, okay, that's why you should bring it to us.
I'd like to present you with this appreciation award, and it reads, it's presented to John Side in sincere appreciation for your outstanding service to the community of Rosamond, and thanking you for everything you do. This is dated 2022. This is a result, as the board knows, of a letter received from the community, a community member, after watching you with your crew and how you led them to complete a job, and how patient you were, how teaching you were, and how he thought that your tutelage to them was going to make them better work. And with that, thank you very much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
We appreciate your work
And can I have a
all
minute?
your years.
Can I have a minute?
Yes, and here's the letter. The original letter, I have a copy for you. Gentlemen, jump together for me. Very good. All right. 1, 2, and 3. There'll be a couple. 1, 2, and...
Okay, it's getting uncomfortable here. So I would like to take a moment to thank some of the people that actually made me great. And I want to start with Christina, Kathy in the office, to deal with all of our public, good, bad, ugly. Julie, she writes my paycheck. She's probably the most important. Ryan and Steve out of the sewer plant. Ryan, I think, is doing an amazing job. Pulling for him every day. He's happy at a water bank. He's happy at work, basically unsupervised. It's a great job. My guys in the shop back there, Tim, Larry, Matt, Doggo, and then Tom working on our truck, and Brock Smith. We're gonna miss him.
We're not.
All right, okay, thank you very much. Hey, folks, can I add something to show you the class of this year? He got a plaque, but he knows he got it, but his team helped him get it. And he took time to identify him. The other important thing, the person that recognizes his effort is not just John Hugh. This is an industry, we can call him, he's a specialist.
It takes an army.
That recognized his effort and what he was doing. So that's props to you, props to your guys. Thank you very much.
Takes an army. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. With that, let's move on to presentation number 2, the water reclamation plant project update. Now I'll have Steve start with it to give the intro and how that's going to form.
Well, I'll have Kennedy Jenks is here to do a presentation. We all know that there was concern with the timeline and the issues that we had at the water reclamation plant. But we also know that every large construction project has its hiccups and its stop starts, and ours were exacerbated by COVID, also timeline issues that I'm speaking of, and here today to basically give an update and to answer board questions is the team from Kennedy Jenks, and I'm going to let them do self-introductions.
Real quick before we start, Steve, let's do this here. You folks will have the floor. Let's let them finish, and then the board will ask them questions. How do you guys want to do the whole presentation? We're not chopping up, asking questions between. How do you want to handle that?
We're here to make a few
few introductory remarks. Tien's going to step through the timeline of the blower issue we experienced. We welcome a dialogue.
At any point.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead. You guys have
We're here for you. Yeah. Well, thank you all for having us in this evening.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Yep, for sure. My name is Pat Houston. I'm Kennedy Jenks, Director of Operations, overseeing all of Kennedy Jenks projects, including this project with Rosamond and the design, engineering services during construction and construction management since 2018. With me tonight are Rachel Druffel Rodriguez, our project manager, Brad Torrenson, our resident engineer, you may see out at the plant, and Tien Eng is our Southern California construction management lead. Director Glenn, I really appreciated your comments that you read there. I believe that was from your father, if I heard you correctly, on the desire to improve, right? Continue process improving oneself, right? And it really resonated, and I think that's appropriate for this evening. I think that's largely what this is about, right? Continuing to improve, recognizing the nature of these types of projects and working through them. And we're here with you tonight that we can continue to improve our delivery as professionals in this industry, as engineers of Kennedy Jenks Consultants, and as your consultants, so we can serve you and continue to serve the public that you all serve. So we understand from your March 23rd board meeting, you requested us to join you and provide an update on the project. I got to listen to the board meeting there, the recording, and I heard your frustrations come through. I share your frustrations with the project on the blower startup issues that we're having and the delays that's causing to construction startup and commissioning. I'm sorry that we have fallen off on our communications with you in our attempt to demobilize a bit as this delay was occurring, so we were reducing our spend. What I realized in that is we fell off in our communications with staff and with you all, and that's something that we're improving on a go-forward basis. So you don't find yourself in a similar frustrating spot in the future. So that's why we're here. Our firm stands behind the design. We stand with you through the final startup and commissioning of the project. As you're aware, there's been challenges with Pacific Hydrotech and construction, startup of the gutters and blower. That's the primary issue that has us up to where we are today. And Tien is going to step through our summary of what we've seen with the blower and kind of what's occurred in September when that blower was originally set to start up, where we are today, and where we are on a go-forward basis to get through startup and commission, and answer any questions for you along the way. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tien, and thank you, Pat. And prior to joining TJ, I've been with Kennedy Jenks for a little bit over a year. Prior to that, I was the assistant manager of all the utilities, water, wastewater, and solid waste. And so for tonight, what we have for you is we wanted to show the board and the general manager, you had a schedule set in December for the plant to start treating wastewater. That didn't happen. So what causes it? And more importantly, moving forward, what is your target? What is your schedule? So that's what we have for you. We're going to go through them. But feel free to interrupt and ask questions.
Okay, before we get started with that, and I appreciate you, sir, you said something that's concerning me already. You said you stepped back and you guys were communicating. My question is, why not? You can maybe have this presentation, why not, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm betting as a vet, I challenge the other clients to get treated this way. One of the things that concerns me about my community, people can take money from our pockets, but we don't get the service that everybody else gets. And to say a step back, I don't know if that means you slow down or whatever. I know everyone uses COVID, and thank you for not bringing it up as an excuse. I see 5 people here, I'm going to assume are very educated in the process. Step back, slow down, communication, how you guys shoot, that is very bad in college. Steve Kanowski, I got on him because what was that red shirt kept asking me, chef for those dollar amounts.
Yeah.
We were a little bit about writing Kennedy checks. And all I'm saying, when I hear people say step back, that means you guys aren't important. Or maybe that's not how you see it. That's how I see it. That's part number one. The part number two, even if the wheels come off the wagon all the way, you still should have one communication. Because in communication, you understand why the wheels come off the wagon.
100% agree.
So with that there, you guys have, that's why I call, I heard the word step back. I don't deal with step back. I deal with realities of my work.
Yes, sir.
You have a terrible phrase to say step back. I mean, you guys no interest in RCSD.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate the question, President Webb. Let me clarify what I meant by that remark. We have a budget to go through that construction period that was scheduled through December. As the contractor was working through that issue, we were working to preserve the budget that we had, make the budget that we have with you all that you're paying us, work through the end of construction so that we weren't spending money when the contractor wasn't making progress. That's what I meant by stepping back. So we weren't spending the money. We were standing with you in preserving that, and so we can mobilize now, and we're still okay on the budget that you've given us.
Okay?
Does that help clarify that?
We're going to find out.
Okay.
Before we move on, I would also like to add that was done at the district's request. That we looked at this budget very closely when we were coming up towards the end of construction. The district staff requested that we reduce the time that's going to be spent at the plant and reduce the number of full on-site meetings and grad visits to the plant to try to preserve that budget space last, rather than come back to the board and request more money for construction management during a very slow time. We made that request to try to keep it.
Understood.
It's kind of commensurate with the amount of work that was possibility.
The alignment that we may both have with that is that we were trying to preserve the public dollars with that.
Okay, now we're starting to beat it up. I heard you guys. I heard three people saying the same thing a different way. I understand that. What I'm saying is, that now, you have to remember too, all of us are not industry-related types. A lot of times, maybe it's easier to say, folks, we get this, there's some type of clarification. Giving you clarification, which makes sense. However, even with that there, the comments you made on the communication part, you still got to communicate. Now maybe you yourself said you weren't communicating with Steve of the district, and I don't know what that means, but hopefully after the meeting, you have it all addressed. What you guys do.
Thank you. So the substantial completion date was supposed to be the end of the year, December 30th of last year. Substantial completion, like the contractor schedule, meaning that the plant can actually start treating wastewater. So when they map out the schedule, the contractor, that means that the blower needs to start up September 15th of last year. That didn't happen on that day. It was because the blower rep got COVID, so there was a 15-day delay to get that going. So on the week of September 5th, October 5th, the rep came out, actually started the blower startup process. So blower number one tested out functioning properly. When we get to blower number two, it did not complete the test. The reason being is part of the process was there needs to be a scenario where blower one is running and then you start blower number two and blower number one slowly ramp down. During that process, the blower number two control system run into failures. So later on, the manufacturer's technician identified that there are components such as the DC choke, DC reactor, and the inverter all need to be replaced, and they don't have the parts that day to bring with them. So the group huddled together, agreed, yes, because this testing is very important, especially at the time that the two blowers need to interface together, and we don't want to just skip it or come back later. We just say, we'll get the part, come back, we want the test, and we want it done. So it took a while. It takes still, November to early December, they got the parts right. But it didn't go smoothly because the second bullet point said they brought out the wrong parts. So you install it, you found out you have the wrong part, can't test it, it won't run. So we install again. Now, time move on. Now it's December 21st of 2021. So they got the right parts. Try to run the blower. Guess what? Found out another problem. Another inverter needed to be replaced. That was not on the list. But now the technicians say, I can't run it. So I'll check on it, but we don't have it in the United States. We got to go to Korea to get them. So move on to the next steps. We waited until March 3rd. We say, hey, you know what? During that time, Brad, every meeting, and you folks can look through the meeting minutes and say, when is this part going to be here? No set time firm. So on that day, we come up and say, hey, enough is enough. We want new blowers. But the suppliers, they brought in their executive group to say, no. That would take longer. Let me get the parts for you. Let me get to you. We'll get back to you. So on March 22nd to March 25th, they got the parts. They came out here. Guess what? It's not smooth. They just found out another thing that needs to be replaced, a new circuit board to be replaced. But this time they know. They heard it long enough. We keep calling. Basically, they said, okay, we'll try to find something for you, but we will try our best to get something temporary, even if we have to start up your blower. So they got something, but it's not the exact same thing. It was a circuit breaker for a different type of blower at a higher horsepower. They say, go ahead, we can run the test, but you can't, after that, we have to shut it down because it's the wrong circuit board, and we want you to shut it down, not to continue running. So those messages didn't sit well with us. We wanted another meeting with a higher group to press the issue. Why we keep waiting? So shortly after, we had a conference call. The manufacturer basically said, okay, you can run it with the temporary circuit board. We're going to warranty the whole thing, and we're still going to order the right parts, but we don't know when we can get it. But you guys can continue with the process startup as is. So April 8th of this year, finally finished the blower test, meaning that we could actually simulate running one, ramp the other one out, ramp down the other one, and then it seems to work fine. However, we have other issues that come up. We found out that during this process, due to the original ducting in the room, the room heats up, causes the blower's operation an issue, and actually one of the blowers shut down. So Brad called our team, the design team. We immediately on it. So right now we have a temporary solution of rearranging some of the ductwork to make sure that those blowers can continue to test it out. So we went as far as started up those diffusers, your biological treatment system, and running it with water. And it's been running since, last week, Brad? Thursday of last week, and it's still running. We just came from the plant. But this blower room heating up issue, we're on it, and we should be able to have a recommendation, and if there's any changes, have those packages talk to Steve, the general manager, very soon. It could be next week. So we'll have a solution for you. But in the meantime, we recommend that we continue with the testing. Don't stall it. But we'll find an answer for that.
I might want to add one thing. I was out there when they started them up, and I put my hands on the blowers, and that might have helped a little. And I understood how it was all operating thanks to John and Brock. And I've heard about it, but it's different to actually be there and see it and hear it and watch it.
Thank you. So major treatment system filled up with water, been running since Thursday. The next step is we got to check out the plant's brain, which is what you folks of Brock say PLC, and that is starting next week until May 4th. We will have our technicians, and then this week we have your staff here. We want to go through all those logic controls. Let's say on this condition, this valve is supposed to be open. They better be open. If this set point needs to be set at that, we'll check those out. There's another set of equipment that we're currently dealing with the contractor, and we have a meeting tomorrow, and we're going to continue to stress that the importance of it is the standby generator. The standby generator is backing up the blowers and all your biological treatment system. So it's important that this thing's checked out, and then at least have a chance to simulate some power shutdown so that that whole system can start up and demonstrate that it can run on its own. So this generator test from the contract documents, the specification, is very stringent. So you do all your checking, and after that, you have to bring in your own load bank to run the generator for 8 hours with the full load, and then the manufacturer has to come out here and take the report so that the power it's steady, it's constant, so that it won't damage those blowers in the future. So after all that, this is the time that we could say it's ready for a facility startup or a substantial completion. That means that that's the day that we can start treating it, starting out with wastewater treatment. And then if all the process started out right for the wastewater treatment, the whole plan, there's the conditions for it, 30-day acceptance test. That means that the contractor will have their technician comes out and run the plant for 30 days. So we will be there along with your hire, I think, startup consultants to monitor those test results. So it's very strict. It's basically, if there's any kind of a failure within 48 hours, you have to get it back up and running. If not, time to go backward and the 30 days start all over again. So the roadmap right now is saying May 11th. That's the day that we're planning to start that. But there's still plenty of work, especially the standby generators, that we're on our side working with the contractor to say, get the technician out here, get the test done, and make sure that it can all function appropriately before we start treating it with wastewater. So, directors, we have another slide, but we want to stop here because we've just gone through a lot of information. There's a lot of graphics. I just prefer to just stop here. If you have any questions, please ask us now. Yes.
Yeah, I've got quite a few actually.
Yes.
You folks weren't here when this plant was designed. I don't remember any of your faces. And we dealt with the design engineers. Dr. Ferguson was one of them, and Toby was another one. And so they were in this room. I understand you guys are primarily in the construction part of it and the inspection. So I'm going to kind of, I appreciate your timeline that you have here, but I've got a timeline of my own. You guys submitted a final concept design on this plant on November 5th, 2018. And in early December, when we got back on the board, requested was to look at the design of the plant. Before we approved the funding and everything else, we were trying to get ourselves up to speed on this plant. In early December, we discovered a blower deficiency while reviewing the submitted plan documents. And in your proposed final design, you called for using the two existing 100 horsepower blowers in conjunction with a new 200 horsepower blower.
And in your own description, you stated that the new 200 horsepower blower would work in concert with one of the 100 horsepower blowers to provide the necessary CFM for plant process, and that the second 100 horsepower blower would be in standby if the other 100 horsepower blower went down. It also stated in your plan documents that if the 200 horsepower went down, that the two 100 horsepower blowers would only provide 70% of the airflow necessary for process. So in other words, all that would do is keep the bugs alive in the plant, but you wouldn't be able to have process. It would just be running in place until the repairs took place on the 200 horsepower blower. Your documented recommendation was to have a spare motor and bearings on hand for the 200 horsepower blower for quick turnaround repairs. That's not going to work, because as you can see right here, of all the things you found wrong, there, circuit boards and electrical issues, cracked housings. It'd be nice if it was just a motor and bearings that you ever had to worry about, but that was not a solution. You guys purposely designed a blower system that had no redundancy. So this board demanded that that this design deficiency be corrected. And during several meetings, your firm came back with a recommendation of two Atlas Copco 225 horsepower multi-stage centrifugal blowers with magnetic bearings. At this time, the RCSD also had an independent PE review the plans and the proposed blowers. This independent PE also corresponded with your staff and RCSD staff in making recommendations on correcting this design flaw. It was decided not to go with the magnetic bearing blowers because it was new technology and there were reliability concerns by everybody involved. And because we couldn't find any place, one thing, where the magnetic bearings had been used in the desert, and we didn't want to end up having issues due to our very hostile environment that we live in here. You guys came up with the Arizona turbo blowers, which the board accepted. There were numerous issues discussed between your firm and the RCSD, and a lot of those discussions are right here in this boardroom. Infrastructure, electrical upgrades, standby generator upgrades, HVAC cooling system for the new blowers, air filtration, etc. One of the things that Dr. Ferguson had said at that time is that we didn't have the electrical supply necessary for some of the things that we wanted to do. And this board said, then whatever we got to do to make the plant operational, power needs or whatever electrical needs, bring it in. That was a discussion that was held. When you were proposing the Atlas Copco, you submitted a design change order in the amount of $115,750 on work order number 2018-4, amendment number 5. This item was placed on the April 24th, 2019 agenda. This item was tabled until Friday, April 26th, to accommodate for the concerns listed above. When we decided to go with the Arizona blowers and not to go with the Atlas Copco, you said you would have updated numbers for us at the next meeting. On Friday, April 26, 2019, during a special board meeting, work order number 2018-4, amendment number 5 for $115,750 was raised to $169,750 for the design issues of the new blowers, and it passed on a 4-0 vote. These blowers have been down for months. While the They've been trying to troubleshoot the cause. And I appreciate your slideshow and everything here, but you know what happened to the blowers, what went down, but we don't know why. And if we don't know what caused these breakdowns, then there's every expectation that they can happen again. And, you know, one of the things that we saw on the Arizon brochure that was given to this agency is that they prided themselves that parts are available within 72 hours. And here we are waiting months to get parts. I know COVID is part of it. I know that the supply chain, but this does not bode well that we've got a blower that goes down and all these circuitries are going out on it. And we still, and even though we have fixed it, we still don't know what happened, why they failed. And that needs to be found out too. We need to know why the failure took place in the first place. You know, and even though we got the blower up and running, they did shut down due to high heat. And my question is that it was discussed that there had to be an adequate HVAC system in that blower room, because no matter what blower system you put in there, any turbo blower you put in there, they're going to shut down on high heat, because when we got desert temperatures, 115, 114 degrees, that room's going to be about 140, 150 degrees in there. That we need to have an HVAC system, and I don't understand, and I know you folks work here. You're part of construction, not design. I'm hoping you can get these answers for us. But when we discussed, you know, ad nauseum, you know, about the electrical needs and the HVAC needs for these blowers, that here we are 3 years later, we got no HVAC system. And, you know, even though you guys go ahead and run your test and get out there for the, you know, the 511 date, you know, we don't know what's going to happen to those blowers when we get into July and August. If we'll be able to run them or not. Because if it just gets too hot in there, they're going to shut down. And so, you know, again, we need to figure out, you know, how we're going to fix this. Because we can't have a system that's just, you know, bubble gum together and isn't able to function year-round because of design issues. You know, we paid the money. We paid $169,000 to have the blowers redesigned, to have the room redesigned, the electrical, everything looked at, so when they go online, because the thing is, the blowers are the most critical part of the plant. No blowers, no process. You don't have a plant without the blowers. And I'm frankly very, very concerned that when we reach our hottest parts of the summer, that those blowers are going to go down. And it's not because they're Arizon blowers, Atlas Copco, anybody else, any turbo blower is going to go down on high heat if they're inside of a hot room and they can't cool down. And, you know, you got a nice electrical room there where the VFD is and all that other stuff. That's air conditioned. And they're kept AC for a reason, because those electrical panels can't overheat. The blowers are no different. They're just as sensitive and critical to heat. And so I'm hoping you guys can get some answers as to, number one, is the standby generator going to be able to fire up everything with an HVAC system? How are we going to correct the HVAC situation so we can have a plant that we have confidence in that's going to run flawlessly 24/7, 365? And that's all I have to say on that.
Director Wood, I just want to make sure I heard your question. I want to read it out so that I took some notes, and we're going to follow up, and we're going to respond. We're going to go to Steve and get the answer to you. The first thing is, this is related to the blower. There's a concern, and we don't have to report yet. During the startup, why do those parts fail? Have to understand why. Fair enough. We'll get that. Parts. Even though we're still not clear out of the COVID, the question on the table is this the norm? Is this part supposed to get? What are we supposed to prepare? So basically, if we will work with the manufacturers and potentially they have to stock up extra parts, we'll work through this to make sure that Director Wood's concern is addressed. Is your blower needs to run so that your treatment system is the key. So we'll work through that and work with the manufacturers to get the right parts so that if those things happen again, it's available, it's in your warehouse to be able to do that. That's your question. The third one that I heard is the issues with what I put up there, resolve the blower room HVAC issues. I heard that, yes. So right now, because outside temperature in the morning, we still need a jacket on. Fair enough, the blower runs because it's cool. So come summer times, this area here, tendency potentially go up to 115 degrees. So what are we going to do then? So hopefully in a week or two, we'll have the solutions, recommendations, run through Steve, talk to you folks, and select a quick solution for that.
Not a quick, a
solid solution. Yeah.
Last summer, I'm not to cut you off, with our whole valley, for 60 months, about 60 days, we were over 95 degrees.
Right.
I mean, straight through. And if we're not getting this right, swallowing a larger window of time, like I said, last summer, I know at least 30 plus days, we were over 90 degrees every day, all day. And not to cut you off, so you're taking notes, but the other question I have, and gentlemen, I'm not an engineer, man, I'm not describing you, I'm not an engineer. I look at simple things. If something's not big enough, or something's getting too hot, you have to start something. My question is, can you come to you can't get this one done, you guys done that. Where you guys got to put confidence back enough that you move forward. I'm trying to cut you off.
Yes. And then the last question from Director Wood is, when you get all this worked out, don't forget. So he basically remind us that the standby generator is to back up the blower and the whole system. So if you choose to, let's say, add an AC unit, make sure that you don't forget that generator can support that. You don't want to be in a situation where you have your blower working, it's really hot, and you have a power outage. You can't run it because your AC won't stop. I heard you loud and clear.
Okay, so what you didn't hear, and I want to go back and correct that a little bit, is that with your design people, we discussed electrical, we discussed standby generator, we discussed HVAC, we discussed all of that before construction ever started, when everything was being designed. And my question is that I don't want, like you said, well, if we want the HVAC system down the road or make sure that no. That's not what I'm saying is that we have to have an HVAC system in there. You know it, we know it. And my question is, why are we here 3 years later, and it was, even though we insisted on it, it never made it into the construction plans. We counted on Kennedy Jenks they designed the plant, and then we hired Kennedy Jenks' construction managers to make sure the plant had no shortcuts, our back was being watched, and that the plant was going to be built as designed correctly, only to find out 3 years later that they left out some crucial parts in the design. That's the question that I want to find out, because we have to have an HVAC. We have to have a standby generator that is going to power that plant in a power outage, which there will be because we have power outages here. And then we need to make sure that this plant is going to run flawlessly and not have a problem where all of a sudden we can't run the plant for 3 or 4 months out of the year. That's not going to do us any good. So, you know, I know you guys weren't part of the design, but somebody needs to find out who dropped the ball, because somebody dropped the ball. And that's the frustrating part, and I'm hoping that you guys can get answers for that.
We will.
Are there any other questions, directors, before I move on to the next slide?
Is there any other, Dan, based on what you've heard, do you have any questions, sir?
The only question I have is on the drying beds. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it. How long would you guys feel like it would take to fill up those drying beds where we have to dump them? Because I think we have 11 now. So how long would it take to fill those up in normal plant operation?
And then, so I'll repeat this again. So you're asking them how long would it take to fill up the dry beds out there?
Yeah, sorry, it's bad reception. I'm wondering how long in normal plant operation as it's designed will it take us to fill up the drying beds?
So I don't have the plans in front of me at this moment, but
This is Brock. I think a lot of that's dependent on the way that Ryan or the operator decides to run that plant. And by full, that would be determined by what freeboard he wants to leave the drying bed, so at what level. We may be able to determine that answer based on the process of the plant, but we don't have an answer for that side.
All right, thanks.
We could do some math based on the last time that plant was run and extrapolate those numbers, but I don't have that answer tonight.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, gotcha. I suppose you guys can continue. Hey, wait, hold on. Ryan or Albert, no? You guys can continue.
So, directors, finally for the last slide here. When I came on board, I looked through the documents because this project is very easy. I had a really nice setup that you can click on the computer and get into the project system Sunday, Monday, midnight, and you can read it all. I was amazed that this project started prior to COVID and gone through 3 versions of COVID. But when I started talking to the residence engineer and also the district staff, their energy level is still very high. They're still working and trying to deal with this situation. And I just wanted to mention that the team spirit is still there, wanted to finish and wanted to finish strong. And finally, on the right-hand side is lesson learned. So we have to dial back in time. In addition to Director Woods' comments about the blowers and the HVAC in the blower room, we have 2 bullet points here. One of those is we realize now, using that construction electronic document system and how important it is for the district staff to quickly pull information down without having to make a bunch of phone calls and updated, directors, all of you, and keep you guys informed. So we're going to continue to put in those reports so that it's accessible to all your staff members
your team make an appearance to the board each month just to give a status update. That way, everybody would have been brought along, so when we had run into any hiccups, that report would have been bringing the board along at that time. So with that part of that, I think the communication I should have done better.
So with that, we're open for questions.
Director, any other questions for him?
No, I'm in the electrical business and on ordered parts, and it would take 6 months to a year to get them. You guys experience that too? Longer. And I think it's everywhere.
I think there was a compounding of errors, and I think out of a lot of our control as far as some of the parts that we had to get. It took a long time to get the first set of replacement parts, and then when we got them, it was the wrong parts. So somebody on the shipping end made a mistake on that. That was part of the delay. That type of thing, and I concur with you, Al, as far as supply chain. I think the frustration is an accumulation of issues that go on, and more importantly, the timeline. I'm particularly focused on what our responsibility is to the state to get this done. If we didn't have a responsibility to the state, we could work through the issues. But we have to get this done. We're constantly being hammered by the state each month. And Brock is preparing a report every month to Lahad on where we're at today. And there's nothing worse than being able to tell somebody, we got another problem. We got another problem. We got another problem. So I think that adds to the frustration, not to mention the cost. Cost is always a concern for everybody. The people look to us to manage their money properly, and we look to you to help us do that efficiently. So now all that frustration adds up for everybody. And from this point forward, I have to say personally, looking at the timeline that we have and knowing what I know today, the 511 timeline is a good line. I like that estimate. Now, everybody knows there's going to be other items, punch list items, but they're not going to be operational items that we'll take care of. And I will have a discussion with Brad and on those concerns and that I want to see addressed, and he can convey to Pacific Hydrotech. So with that, again, I could have done some things differently on the communication side and had you here before the board monthly. It wouldn't have been like taking a COVID shot. So
Steve, I just appreciate your comments, but you know what? I would also say to you folks here, you folks, not you per se, your company has to be the project manager. And you have no responsibility. The responsibility to accept the whole plate, good or bad. Just standing after the fact, maybe they should take an initiative and say, you know what? We need to get in front of that community. We need to get in front of that community and let it know. Part of the problem is, this is just life in general. Things are going along. I'm getting paid to do what I do. I keep doing what I do. The reason I bring up the finance part of it, but that's a lot of high up out there that's not working yet. And I know you guys are not sitting all over, but I'm going to have. I never tell a person I do their job if I don't know the job they're doing. I have to do it right. If I would ask that, if these things come up, I'm not an engineer, so I can tell me the forward, a little more, so that you can hear me talk. Rock, people that are out there, they're probably just like the Steve and everyone else. What's going to happen? The wind company is very, very happy that they're going to get done. My thing is, if it happens on May 11th, and I'm not telling you, I'm betting it may not. You guys have to prove me different. Because again, when you lose confidence and all these things you talk about that didn't go right, that's understandable because you don't control all of it. But so you're the one that said yourself communication on it. And how that broke down, you guys said it's fixed, you're going to move forward. So hope you, by May 11th, I hope that's 2022, not 2022. May 2022. 2022. Let's move forward in a good direction. You know where we stand here, this is how we go about it. I have confidence you folks can do it because it's pretty bold. You guys don't be behind the plan. You guys have to be responsible for something that you design and ensure you guys keep it on. So I'm going to move forward to that. I have said, prove me wrong that my May 11th is pretty good to go because we're not out of the woods yet because we start that 30-day period, correct? Hey, like I said, you have to be mindful. These 100-degree days are coming. You have to be here for, like I said, look at that historical thing now. Now, you get hot, stay hot. And how this stuff got fast. It's possible. Be optimistic as a whole, as a group, as a team, that we're going to get it done. I appreciate your folks coming out here because the fact you guys got this sports elite vision kind of helped. The thing about going to Korea and all that there, I wouldn't wish it on when to get that stuff over here. You checked in the wrong piece, wrong part. That could be someone working so hard for them to stand the wrong piece. You know, moving beyond that. I don't believe we can get to the point that nailed up and get Sydney started that process on us to get it on. So we got to keep up, most important point. The state gets tired of us. All this is irrelevant. All of this is irrelevant. The state gets tired of us. Because when they come here and say things will happen, we'll all be out there pulling extension cards, brake lines, and whatever. So that's work like that.
We're going to want to reimburse.
Any director have any other questions or concerns that you want to bring up? Steve?
Nope, I'm good.
Rob, you have any more for our vision?
Oh, yes, I do have one more comment. I'll be out to see you tomorrow sometime. Brad, if you're there.
Yeah, well, we got the 10 o'clock meeting with the contractor.
I believe I have 10 o'clock also, so it'll be later.
Okay. Rob?
I just want to say thanks to the community team for coming out to address this issue and for the information they provided.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you got any closing remarks?
Thank you for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you all and work through this issue with you.
I need your support. All those things that I read off, tell them to make it available for all of us because I'm only going to ask you if you like to ask for copies. We'll get all the copies.
And again, I might remind Director Wood, you did meet with Rachel also and the design team.
Okay.
In fact, we met at their office.
All right, I remember that now.
Yeah.
So Rachel, Ken, Pat, and Brad, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I just want to thank you guys for coming out, and it's just, we just need to find out what happened. We need to fix it, and so we can move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are you guys going to continue with this? You're going to break down? Let's take a 5-minute break, so we don't have all these moving parts and get so. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll continue.
I love that.
To approve the check, voucher register from 3/1/2022 to 4/4/2022. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Gunner. May I get a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Director Wallace. May I get a roll call vote, please?
President Request?
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
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 For the record, show that was a 5-0 vote. The next item I'll go to, it'll be CC2 and CC3. That's cash balances for March of 2022 and cash balances for February of 2022. May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Vice President Glenn, I have a motion for approval. May I get a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Director Wood. May I get a roll call vote, please? Yes.
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 For the record, show that was a 5-0 approval for cash balances CC2 for March 22, cash balances CC number 3 for February 2022. Let's go down to the reserve balance, and that's CC number 4. Can I get a motion for reserve balances CC number 4?
So moved.
Vice President Glennon, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Director Wallace, can I get a roll call vote, please? Yes.
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 For the record, show that for CC number 4, reserve balance, there was a 5-0 vote. And finally, CC number 5 is the third quarter treasury report. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice President Glennon. May I get a second?
Second.
Second by Director Wood. May I get a roll call vote, please? Yes.
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 For the record, show for CC number 5, the third quarter treasury report. Okay, I'm going to assume for 2022, for 21-22, we don't have, it doesn't have a reporting date on it.
What's that?
The third quarter treasury report, what's the year of it?
I figured it out. I couldn't find the sheet.
What?
It just has the quarter treasurer's report, it doesn't have the what year.
Oh, 2022.
2022, okay. So can I get a motion to your motion by Director Glennon? It'll be the quarterly treasury report. It'll be of 2022?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, Greg, you still have your second?
Yes.
You can have your roll call vote on it? Yes.
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 The record show 5-0 vote. We're down to new business number 3, and this is a vote for a special district representative to Sheriff from LAPCO. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, the LAPCO representative is for special districts. In the past, special districts did not have a seat on LAPCO. They have recently, and it's important that we vote somebody on there to represent special districts. I know none of the candidates. I do know that Karen Sanders from the East Kern Resource Conservation District is their vice president, which is in the northeastern general area, if I remember right. And she currently is an incumbent and on LAPCO. And that's all I know. I tried to get information on each one of these, and I had no calls back. My good friend over at Westside Rec and Park, Les Park, I haven't got a response back. We have until the 30th of this month to get this ballot into the LAPCO office. And my recommendation would be left to the board on the candidates, and I could read you the list, or bring back to the board a recommendation.
Steve, I would think because this is kind of important to us,
Yes.
that maybe get these, scheduling could have prevented someone from getting back to you, but I would feel comfortable just blindly giving a vote to someone as important as could be. So
I agree.
I'd ask the board to consider maybe tabling this until Steve can do a little more research and bring someone back to us. But at least that Julie gets back to you and gets, at least you can tell us who they may be.
Yeah, I'd like you to bring back your recommendation the next meeting. Okay.
So can I get a motion from one of the directors to table this MB number 2 until Steve can get a little bit more research?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice President. Correction. Director Wood. Sorry. Now,
We're out of sync. Is that Vice President Glenwood?
Glenwood, yeah. So we have a motion by Director Wood to table MB number 2. Yeah, can I get a second? We have a second by Director Wallace. Can I get a roll call vote for that, please?
President Request?
Yes.
Vice President Request?
Yes.
President Stewart?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
President Request?
Yes. Can I get, Mr. President, a date of the next meeting? Do you have that date? How's that? 27th.
Yeah.
So, that would give us enough time.
By 30th, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I think, Blair had mentioned it has to be in by Friday the 30th.
Okay. So table it to the next meeting. They'll give you time, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. So we'll table that with a 5-0 vote. That's what she's going to fill that board there. We kind of done employee appreciation. That's pretty good. That was nice. I like that. Then we've done a lot of water reclamation plant update. And we're down to director reports. And we have discussion regarding naming of district facilities. And Greg Wood, you have the chair, sir.
Okay, good evening. I am bringing to the board tonight for you to consider the renaming of district facilities in honor of directors and other individuals that have served and unselfishly given to this community and have been a part of the RCSD family. And the inspiration for this idea came when about 3 years ago when AVEC was celebrating their 60th anniversary. And it was suggested to recognize all 4 of their directors who had served AVEC for at least 30 years by naming a facility after them. I thought that was a great tribute to honor those who have given so much of themselves for the betterment of all of us who live in the Antelope Valley and beyond. I realized that this agency had also dedicated facilities in honor of those who have served, such as this boardroom after Harold Reske, and the demonstration garden outside after Tommy Loomis. And for a short time, West Park after Russ Williford Sr. Since joining the RCSD as a member of the Sewer Ad Hoc Committee in 1994 and becoming a director for the first time in 1997, I have had the distinct pleasure and honor of serving with many of this community's great men and women. Harold Reske, Tom Loomis, Barbara Speed, Gary Sperling, Daniel Lansgard, Joe Pauly, Dick Pengilly, Kathy Spohr, and many more. I also want to mention the current board that I have the honor of working with on behalf of the community and the RCSD. Rick Webb, Ben Stewart, Al Wallace, and Byron Glennon. And one last member, Russ Williford, and it is the 2 last names I want to concentrate on for tonight. Byron, be modest now. Byron Glennon is a man who has served this community his entire life. And as we have witnessed over the past years, he reads writings from his father, that it is obvious where he gets his sense of community service. I remember years ago when Byron told how he arrived in Rosamond as a baby in his mother's arms. Byron has dedicated his life to this community as a school teacher, coach, father, church board member, and a long-serving member of this board. I have had the honor of serving with Byron for many years on this board and have witnessed firsthand how much he cares for this community. Never having an agenda and always voting for what's best for this community and this agency. Byron has always been a pillar of integrity, putting the community and this agency first. the RCSD serves several functions for the community of Rosamond, Byron has always had a passion for water and has served on every water committee that this agency has. He has been involved with the Rosamond Water Bank since its inception, which I would like to add was the first water bank in the Antelope Valley. Next person that I want to focus on is Russ Williford. Russ was another man who spent his entire life working for this community and its people, and sadly, he left us too soon in January 2019. Russ was a man who was dedicated to this community and to this agency. I first met Russ when our sons were in Cub Scouts together, and we became very good friends. Russ was someone who was always thinking about the community. Just before Russ went in for his surgery, shortly before he passed, I went to visit him at another of his great passions, which was Rosamond Hills. And while we laughed and joked and talked about his upcoming surgery, he changed the conversation to the RCSD and our pressing need to find additional water for the community. We talked about water for the better part of an hour, and I sat there amazed that all he was facing was his illness and upcoming surgery, that he was most concerned about this community. But that is the type of man Russ was. But this was not my first encounter with Russ about water for the community of Rosamond. Many years before, when the RCSD was preparing the community for using recycled water, the RCSD had developed a public education program on recycled water, and I was conducting presentations to anyone who wanted to learn about recycled water. It was at one of these presentations where I was invited to speak to the board of directors at Rosamond Hills. And at the end of the presentation, and I remember going into my little sales pitch I had prepared, only to be stopped by Russ and his dad. And they said that I don't need to convince them because they are water people going back decades. Russ was a pillar in this community, and that is why after his passing, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy wrote, "It is because of great men like Russell that make our community a better place." And you know, I consider it an honor to call both of these men good friends. And with that, the RCSD has two main wells that provide water to the community of Rosamond. They are wells number 8 and number 9. And in honor of these two men, I would like to ask the board to please consider renaming well number 8 the Byron Glennon well site, and renaming well number 9 the Russ Williford well site. And you know, before we can consider this, there was a matter that came to my attention, and that is RCSD policy 713, renaming district parks and other facilities. It states, among other things, that under 7013.1, subsection A, subsection 3, that an individual must be deceased for at least 1 year. This policy was written on 11/14/2007 and amended on 2/27/2008. This policy should be null and void because when it was written, it was pertaining to parks and recreation and their facilities, a power the RCSD no longer has. But if the policy is determined to be in effect in regards to the well sites renaming, then section 7013.2, which reads, naming requests that are not specifically prescribed in this policy may be considered and acted on by the board of directors at its sole discretion. Since well sites number 8 and number 9 clearly have nothing to do with parks and recreation, then section 7013.2 is applicable. And I just want to add one more caveat on this, that Harold was alive when this boardroom was dedicated in his honor. So it has not always been a policy of this agency to name their facilities after deceased individuals, and it's time that we get in the habit of honoring. Unfortunately, Russ is no longer with us, but honoring people like Byron for their commitment and their dedication to this community, and well-deserved accolade for their dedication. And my presentation.
Hey, Greg, who's on the policy committee?
Not sure.
Or you? Jim, you're on the policy committee, right?
Yes, I am.
Who's your other policy committee member?
I don't have it in front of me. We haven't done it in a while. My guess would be Wallace.
Wallace Stewart.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm asking Greg, thank you for that presentation. In the future, just tell us what you want done. Let's do this here. Steve, let's get the policy committee people in there. Let's take that part out. I'm going to ask that they look, Jim, you, Director Wallace, you guys look at taking the parts out, because that's a power we not have, and maybe look at bringing it back to the full board, clean it up, get that 1 year out, and we'll just go over here and go from that, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and Greg can proceed with your request.
All right.
That is commendable.
I'm humbled and appreciate what I've heard, and I tend to joke, and my joke would be, why not the men's and women's bathroom?
I'll put it in the front out there. I'll put it
Russ could be the women's bathroom, or they're unisex now.
So, Director Wallace, Director Steele, when you folks get together soon, maybe perhaps before the next board meeting, get that cleaned up and bring it back, and we can push that forward.
When's Stewart going to be back?
He's probably in Vegas partying. We're going to be back.
I will be back tonight.
So you guys can work on that. Okay, thank you. So we're in Director's report. Do you have anything for us?
I'd like to thank the staff for the opportunity to witness the operation of the water reclamation plant and their patience in kind of explaining to me about the hair dryers and in terms that I can kind of understand and get a feel for it. It's really changed since the last time I was out there. Probably be good if we had a engineering meeting and a board meeting together and went out there after it's all working fine. I also had I listened to the ABAC meeting, and there wasn't anything really too exciting at the ABAC meeting this last week. Last night. And I had the opportunity to represent us at the school district's dedication of their new buildings, and Steve was there. And unfortunately, they asked for anyone who was in elementary school at Rosamond to stand up, and there were about 5 of us. And then, unfortunately, they made us come up in front. And then, unfortunately, they asked who was the oldest one, and even required me to tell them my age. But anyway, and they had the bell from the way back to the original school, and it's on a plaque there. And it was a good day. Yeah, Steve was there, and I didn't go in for the refreshments, so I don't know what the snacks were, but they had snacks.
Well, I've been there, other ones.
Yep.
Well, Steve, you know what's really interesting about that? When you go around town, his name always comes up and your name comes up. And then you find out that you're kind of junior compared to all the OGs. You're kind of a junior in there, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I would be the junior in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 5 there that had gone to elementary school in Rosamond.
My only claim to fame the lounge up there, I came in when there was 1 signal light. So I only claim to the 1 signal light.
And there are very few that had gone through from kindergarten all the way through.
that is
That was
amazing.
one of them.
Director Laws, you have anything for us? Director Stewart, you got anything?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Hey, folks, I'm going to tell you because you're leaving us soon. I'm going to have retirement next year. The reason I'm telling people now, because, just for dynamics, sometimes you don't see people turn from. But I'm going to have a retirement next year. It's going to be like an all-day event. And you're welcome. Anyone from the district's welcome. More information will come out. But I'm telling people now because life gets in front of life, and sometimes things happen. And by the way, we all know now, but congratulations to you, Brock, for your new position there. I will say this about that if people come places, they're kind of here. Like I was saying, 6 in one hand, 18 in another. Which one do you go after? Well, you've shown that you can go after all of them, you can hold all of it. And when you were here, I think you were doing the mapping or charting or something when I first met you, whenever that was, and look where you're at now. So props to you. I'm going to tell you, stay on top of it and keep digging, keep grinding, and keep pushing. Props to you. Job well done. Here's what I'd like to ask Steve first, if we could look into. Did you guys see anything about, I guess, the Conservation Corps down for rebates?
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop. That's what I'm using. Now, Steve, this is for you. This goes back to something we were talking about. Maybe we could look into an ad hoc type committee to see the interest in Rosamond here, because from a growth standpoint, like what we're talking about, if water's going to be the underlying for everything that happens, I mean, I don't know how you look at what you see, but maybe we could start asking the county, are people looking at that thing for or whatever, to kind of see where we could be going, because maybe that dictates how aggressive we may or may not be as a district with some of the things we're talking about. So maybe you, myself, and whoever else has some interest, we can sit down and maybe think about, looking forward, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, because 2 things are going to happen. Affordability may be the cornerstone for this community, but we got to grow somehow. I know people don't want us to grow, but this is a great place to live because we're out here.
It's going to happen one way or another.
There you go. So maybe be ahead of the curve instead of behind it.
Al and Byron can attest to it, and Greg to some extent, I think. But over the years, we've seen growth spurts in Rosamond, but we haven't seen growth spurts as detailed as we're seeing today, with commercial and housing at the same time. So I think that's an indicator that people have noticed Kern County less expensive than LA County, and we're getting that look, and I think growth will sustain itself as long as the economy doesn't stop it. Yeah. But when that turns around, it'll start up again. I think we're right in the crosshairs of growth.
Yeah, they used to say, Lily could probably testify to this, they used to say we're going to get a market, and we didn't believe it.
Yeah.
We did not.
Yeah. And 2-star, I always tell people we got 2 Starbucks.
There was a family here, I think their name was Humble, they wouldn't sell the property.
Yeah, but like I said, Steve, maybe we'll talk about it and get one of the board members just to kind of think about it. And the one last thing I have before we continue is that with the electrical car studies going on so big, maybe this goes back to when we had the compressed gas, when Byron was supporting that. It was back then, and we said it wouldn't kind of work out, but maybe Steve, contact the county to see if there's any grants or funds available. Maybe if we put some charging ports out here. Electric cars? No, it's not compressed gas.
Right at me. He's going to deny it.
Well, hey, Brian, it wasn't just compressed gas, but here's the thing I found out, is that when we look at those places, we're not on the go place list because, like, at Tesla, I was in Culver City, they have all these old bays, plug the cars in or whatever, but they put you in the middle. No one says to go off the off-roads because it's not there. So maybe, call the county up to see the feasibility possibly. Because we have a lot of people in town, and you have people that go out to the raceways and all this that have Teslas or whatever. Maybe it could just be something that we could do as community benefit, when people come in through that, maybe we get a little bump from. But that's all I got there.
We're going from natural gas to electric.
He's still a little sensitive, I'll see you.
I guess, didn't they? But it never, yeah.
Anyway, well, sir.
And with that, the charging stations, however, the technology, and I've been following some of the technology on batteries and stuff, and the charging, the efficiency of batteries is getting to a point where they illustrated the Prius. They just used it as an example. Would fill up here and have, I think it was 6 stops to get to the East Coast, and then they had another one, the different type of battery, or it was one of the Teslas, would be 4, and then the new battery would take you from the West Coast to the East Coast with 1 charge and 15 minutes. So that type of technology is starting to gel, and they haven't got it out yet, but it's not far off. If it's on their books and they're working on it, it can't be too.
The car's 10,000. The battery's 100,000.
And what it did say that it would cut the cost of the battery in half and the weight almost nil. So it was.
Somebody's going to get that and hide it.
Well, I know that that's one of those models of Tesla for the purpose of driving.
In the name.
I still can't go today with go to see the kids. I can't. I can fill up here and drive the miles until the day. I can't do that on an electric car, so it's not on that. But it's something we can consider. But anyway,
Extension cord.
You get no drop cards. Every other. Plus you can put gas. Okay, with that, I'll continue. Let's do with the legal counsel update. Do you have anything for us, sir?
No, sir.
Good evening, sir. Let's continue with the general manager's update. Steve, you have the floor.
Nothing to report tonight. I think all mine's going to be in the next meeting when we go.
Okay, that's it. And then we have the director of administration. Zach, you have the floor.
The state of California has acted as an act moratorium during the COVID-19 pandemic has since expired. As for further resume operations with the receipt of services connection, the district identified delinquent accounts as now delinquent to 320 customers, for a total delinquent amount of $79,292.40.
$80,000 we're short. Okay.
And that doesn't include the reserve money that we received from the state for the water fund.
Okay.
I haven't received that within a while.
Okay.
The district is notifying those customers that the recipe balance on their account will again be subject to the services connection beginning July 1st, 2022. And asking them to contact us prior to July 1st so that we can help them bring their account back to the scan in order to prevent their account from being create additional service interruptions. The district has been notified that the Department of Community Services and Development has released the final program guidelines for the low-income household water program. This program will provide financial assistance to low-income residents to help manage their residential water and wastewater bills. Local service providers will begin accepting applications from eligible households by 2022 or no later than June 2022.
And do those go through us?
No, they go through a third party.
Okay.
All we do is we just receive acceptance advice. The program will operate through August 31st, 2023. Customers can now connect to be notified via email when the program launches. You can visit jenks.gov/water bill. Save the date. ACI will be holding a Spring Business Summit on May 25th, 2022 from 7 a.m. to noon at the 8th Year Internet Center. sent me an email blast to promote the lawn review program. In our next newsletter, we'll put it on our website, on our Facebook page, and anywhere else that we can get the information across. We've already distributed this post today, but hopefully we'll get something out.
Can you put your drone up and fly the drone over the community?
Now, I did speak to representatives from the Resource Conservation this morning. I was curious to know if they have no maximum amount for release, how much money they have. They only have $75,000. I'm sure it's true, perhaps from the state.
$75,000.
They're going for round two, but that's what I heard the amount.
Well,
It sounds like this is the first time that they're doing this, but I don't think they really know what's like that.
they say they've had a lot of people apply yet, or?
I don't think so. I think this program just came out. We received an email notification
Just came out.
the last couple days. I reached out to them. They're looking for the word to get out.
Okay.
We told them we have 500 customers that we can reach out to. They disqualified us if we have dirt. We obviously don't get anything, but it's encouraged for those people that do want it. And that concludes my report.
Okay. So, folks, I want to share one thing before we get to the update for Public Works. We have on our website, we have the plants that you can use for the high desert. I spoke to the gentleman who helped design the site for us. He's now with a different company, and by chance meeting, I was looking at some information. I spoke to him, I called him up. He remembers the district. Two things he said about the district. He liked the professionalism of the whole district, and just how attractive was that as far as accommodating and helping you by. Jeff, did you ever physically come here? Yeah, but he remembered you. Yeah, he remembered you, but he said the district as a whole, he liked the overall dynamics when we presented to him. So even when we don't know people, we still do good by people. And know that your parents always tell you the way you act, you treat people, people remember that. So I thought that was pretty decent that he remembered. Because the first thing he said, I saw Rosamond on the response in the email. I said, I never heard no one from Rosamond, but the district. So I thought that was kind of nice. John, are you there? Oh, one second.
In talking to the conservation district, they're actually going to be promoting our conservation website.
Oh, really?
They liked it.
Oh,
That's what they're doing for this area. So I told them, by all means.
Outstanding. See? There we go. What up in your beard, John?
I'm going to take over since John isn't here tonight.
Here's your John for you.
This will be the last meeting that I'm in attendance. This is as tall as I get. So it's been a tall meeting. Since the last work meeting, we have had some warmer weather, and with warmer weather comes service line leaks. So we've had staff preparing multiple service line leaks. That's pretty normal this time of the year, and we're preparing those as they come up as fast as we can to save water. We've also completed the routine sewer cleaning at our areas of enhanced maintenance. These are the areas that the district has identified over the past years throughout our routine cleaning, where we know that they require more attention than the regular sewer system. So those get cleaned on a more regular basis. Those were just completed last week.
Is that near Rick's house?
No.
Where it needs more attention?
No.
No, okay.
We've also continued to work with the county contractor to protect and relocate the utilities that are affected by the pedestrian path construction project. That's the construction you see near 20th Street West, Rosamond Boulevard, all the way east on Rosamond Boulevard to United. So district staff been working closely with that contractor to make sure none of our utilities are affected throughout that project. We had 2 operators attend the American Water Works Association spring conference. That was over the past few days. They got to see a lot of new technology and learn about new regulations. We have 2 operators going to a different seminar tomorrow related to wastewater collection systems. And then we completed and submitted the annual drinking water report and the annual report for the wastewater treatment system for the 2021 calendar year. In addition to that, we had a scheduled visit from the Division of Drinking Water today. One of their engineers comes to inspect our system on a regular basis. And although we don't have the written report yet, everything went well. Verbally, everything went well, and as expected with that.
So Juan got an A?
Juan got an A, and all of our sites got an A.
Good for that.
And as I said, this is the last meeting, so I really would like to take a minute, and I'm not going to talk to John's speech, but I wanted to take a minute to thank the employees that I've had the chance to work with over the past 15 years. The
you, Brock.
And the door is open.
You know, it's a tradition at the district that the people that leave buy us stuff. It's important right here at the bottom.
It's donuts on my lap.
Congratulations to you.
I would just like to tell you, Brock, I told you this before the meeting, but the fact is that it's a great opportunity for you. As a director of this agency, I hate to see you go. I wish you weren't. But Quartz Hill is going to be the better for it, for you going there. And we're going to suffer your loss. And you'll be greatly missed. And wish you nothing but the best in all your future endeavors. And if you ever want to come back, the door's open.
Thank you.
I was going to chime in and say that very similar thing. A lot of people say close the door on your way out. Okay, the door won't be closed on your way out.
Well, folks, we're not done. We need a motion to go back to the closed session.
So moved.
I got a motion by Vice President Bennett. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Director Wood. Can I get a roll call vote?
President Williford?
Yes.
Vice President Bennett?
Yes.
President Stewart?
Yes.
Director Alfred Wallace?
Yes.
Director Ripley?
Yes.
The record show 5-0 vote to go back to the closed session at 8 o'clock.